I stopped drinking because of something that I saw in my camera roll of myself that was not me.
Imagine this for a moment. It's late at night. You unlock your phone, open your camera roll, and start replaying videos from the night before. At first, everything looks completely normal. You're watching yourself laugh, talk, move around. Nothing seems out of place. Then, for just a split second, your stomach drops. The face staring back at you doesn't look like yours anymore. Not older, not distorted, something else. Something so unsettling that you immediately stop the video, then press play again, convinced your eyes must be playing tricks on you. That's exactly what one man says happened to him. He believes that a single video, hidden in his camera roll, changed his life forever. In fact, he says it was the moment he decided to walk away from alcohol completely. We'll come back to his story in just a minute. But first, I need to ask you something. Have you ever heard of something called demon face syndrome? Most people haven't. And yet, it sits at the intersection of psychology, perception, and one of the oldest spiritual questions humanity has ever wrestled with. Because for centuries, people from completely different cultures have described eerily similar experiences. Faces that seem to change before their eyes. Expressions that suddenly don't look human. Moments where someone they know appears, even if only for a second, to become someone else. So, what are they actually seeing? Is it nothing more than a trick of the brain? A rare psychological phenomenon? Or could there be a spiritual reality that modern culture has learned to dismiss, but one the Bible has been talking about all along? Before we examine the footage that changed this man's life, we first have to understand why so many people, separated by countries, cultures, and even centuries, continue to report remarkably similar experiences. And the answer may challenge both skeptics and believers alike. This is where our investigation begins.
Have you ever talked to someone and when you're speaking to them, all of a sudden their face takes on a completely different countenance? Like maybe you're talking to your grown child and all of a sudden she looks like your dead grandmother, or maybe your dead aunt. Or have you ever been having an argument with your husband and when you're looking at him, you can tell that it's not him that you're talking to. His face takes on a different countenance and it actually looks like somebody that you used to know years ago, maybe in his family or your family. These are shape-shifting demons and they're actually very common.
So we're calling this demon face syndrome now. This is what this is called. I just want y'all to take a good look at the demon face syndrome. One thing about the world always have to have their own label, their own wording, because what they can't understand, something that is way more spiritual than it is natural, they have to always label something spiritual with something natural. So now this is a syndrome. I just want everybody to see. So a 59-year-old out of Nashville, Tennessee, has reported seeing demon faces. Apparently he was watching TV and one of his roommates came out and he said that his roommate face the eyes were elongated, and they had like a grimace, and this grimace look to them. And then I guess the roommate's girlfriend came out as well and she began to look the same. So he ended up calling the authorities because of course he called the authorities, and now they're reporting to say that this is called a demon face syndrome. Now, this is reported on CNN. For the life of me, it's crazy during this time that all of a sudden, now there's reports of people seeing demons. When the world knows all of history, churches have had deliverance services and people have literally gone through physical manifestation of demons being casted out of them. This is wild to me because now they want to put it out there like it's a syndrome. So when people begin to actually experience this, now the world has a label. Now that cancels out the spiritual side of it. Oftentimes when people have interactions with demonic beings and things of that nature, it draws them back to Jesus.
Now, before we go any further, I want to share something I've never really talked about before. When I was a little kid, probably around 7 years old, maybe even younger, I used to have the same recurring dream over and over again. It always took place in the house we were living in at the time. In the dream, my mom would call out to me from another room, just like she normally would. Everything looked ordinary. Everything sounded ordinary, but something deep inside me knew something wasn't right. I can't explain why. Nothing looked different. Nothing seemed out of place. Yet there was this overwhelming feeling that the person calling my name wasn't actually my mother. And the strangest part was this. It almost felt as though whatever was pretending to be her knew that I'd figured it out. The moment that realization crossed my mind, everything changed. The woman who looked exactly like my mom would suddenly twist into something I still struggled to describe. Her body would contort in impossible ways. Her movements became frantic and unnatural as she scrambled across walls and ceilings with a speed that terrified me. Every single time, I'd wake up in absolute panic. What makes those dreams so difficult for me to explain is that I was just a child. This was long before I'd ever watched horror movies, seen supernatural special effects, or heard stories depicting anything remotely like what I experienced. I had no framework for imagining something like that. So I've often wondered, why did that dream keep repeating itself? Was it simply the imagination of a child? Was it my brain processing fear in a way I still don't understand? Or was there something more going on? I don't know. But I'm curious whether you've ever experienced something similar. Have you ever had a dream that felt so real, so strangely consistent, that years later, you still can't explain it? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's get back to the man whose camera roll changed his life forever. Because what he says he found on his phone is only the beginning of this investigation.
I stopped drinking because of something that I saw in my camera roll of myself that was not me. We're gonna get into this. It was December 31st, 2020. And keep in mind, I'm scrolling through this. I don't remember this because I blacked out. I was on Bourbon Street. And apparently I was in the bathroom in some bar on Bourbon Street, recording myself crying and just melting down. And then all of a sudden, I stopped crying. My eyes turn jet black and my face just goes cold. And whatever it was in me looked up at my phone and it said, if you take another drink, mark my words, this is gonna happen. I promise you. And I saw that video. And I showed my wife. I ain't drink no more. We going on almost 6 years. I ain't drink no more. It took that. For me to see, I saw a demon in my own face. That's my story.
All right, so I was not going to say anything about this demon face syndrome, but I have to say something. Y'all don't remember this happening in the 90s? Y'all don't remember this being a whole thing? People would low-key like shapeshift in church. So this video is not for everybody, and I will probably delete it because this is not my type of content, but in the 90s, in Black church, you had something called a deliverance service. Sometimes people would come to the service to get delivered of demonic energies or nightmares, spirits, all types of things, demons, just like the Catholic Church has exorcisms. So people would come to the Black church to be delivered. Sometimes it didn't even take a deliverance service. It could happen in a regular service where this evil energy that was overtaking the person's life, this energy would manifest and it would sometimes growl, scream, or the person's features would almost shapeshift. The person's physical features would change. Their voice would change right here in church. Like, I know I'm not the only one who remembers this. It was a whole thing. And a lot of times when it would happen, the face resembled this picture that's floating around in the news. And so it's crazy because I was talking to one of my friends the other day. I was like, well, what happened to all the demons? Because you remember back in church, back in the day, like these evil presences would be challenged in church and they would be cast out. But now it's like, you don't even see people talking about it anymore. This ain't new. This is not new. If you know, you know. You had to be there at Black church in the 90s, not these huge mega churches and with these huge productions. No, it happened at the small country churches where they would call up an old grandma. For some reason, the old grandma had all the power, and sometimes the pastor couldn't even get the demon out of people, or the dark presence. But they would call an old woman to the front, and she would tell that evil spirit to leave, and that person's face would change back to normal. I know I'm not the only one. I cannot be the only one who remembers this.
Hey, go on here with all that. Go on over there with all that. Go. I'm not even in the mood today. Get away.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Go.
What are you talking about?
Shit.
What are you talking about?
Seth, come on over here.
Now, of course, the average skeptic will hear stories like these and immediately reach for a psychological explanation. And to be fair, that's not an unreasonable place to start. I've said this before on this channel, but I actually studied psychology. It was my major in college. I understand how perception can be influenced. I understand cognitive biases, sleep phenomena, memory reconstruction, and why the human mind can sometimes convince itself that something extraordinary has happened. Those explanations are real. But here's what I've also come to realize. They're not always the whole picture. The purpose of videos like these isn't to force anyone to believe in demons or the supernatural. It's to examine experiences that thousands of people across different cultures and generations continue to report. Experiences that many say changed the course of their lives. Maybe you've never had one. If that's true, I completely understand why a psychological explanation feels sufficient. But sometimes, life has a way of confronting you with something that doesn't fit neatly inside the categories you've built for it. And when that happens, you begin to realize that psychology can explain a great deal without necessarily explaining everything. That doesn't mean every claim of demonic activity is genuine. People can misinterpret what they see. They can exaggerate. They can even fabricate stories entirely. But acknowledging that reality doesn't automatically make every supernatural claim false either. I say that because my interest in this subject isn't purely academic. When I was younger, I had an experience that has stayed with me for my entire life. I remember waking in the middle of the night and seeing what appeared to be an elderly man standing in my room. He reached toward me, offering me a piece of fruit. I wasn't dreaming. Even now, years later, I can still remember exactly what he looked like and what he was wearing. I can't hand you laboratory evidence for what I experienced. I can only tell you that it happened to me. And I know I'm not the only person whose life includes experiences that don't fit comfortably into a purely material explanation of reality. Some of us come from families where the supernatural wasn't an abstract idea discussed in books. It was something people encountered firsthand. Some would describe those experiences in terms of witchcraft. Others would interpret them differently. Whatever label someone chooses, those encounters shape the way they see the world. From my own perspective, I believe it was God's protection that carried me through those moments. You're free to disagree with that conclusion, but ignoring the possibility of a spiritual world doesn't make it disappear. It simply means you've chosen to interpret reality through a particular lens. And every one of us has to decide for ourselves which lens best explains the world we live in.